Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdicus Ryan, and today I'm joined by
Nerdicus Dave,
Nathan Nerdark,
Nerdicus Ted.
And today we explore evil for fun and profit with a little help from Matthew Mercer of Critical Role.
Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips as well as learn how to game with us.
So Matt Mercer did an excellent video on running evil campaigns, but it was a little bit more than that.
And also curbing murder hobodom.
Yeah. Yes. And I feel like a huge part of this gets summed up with Session Zero and having a social contract when he's talking about running the evil campaign, the evil game.
I mean, he started off with an example of a heated argument happened and the NPC died. And then where does it go from there? And it's possible that the player just kind of got hyped up and did something that he shouldn't have done. But it also could have been an evil character that decided, you know what, all right, fine, I'm killing him, and that's that. So it's definitely two different ways to look at it.
Well, no, basically, regardless, whether the character is evil or just the player being rash and hasty, it's still an evil action, right? It's like just murdering someone in cold blood over a disagreement is generally frowned upon by society. So he was just saying that, like, well, now what unfolds as that? And so doing certain unlawful acts, like extreme ones especially, should bear some sort of consequences.
And we've gotten questions over the years in regards to, hey, this thing happened in my game. I don't know how to actually resolve it. We've been in games that were designed to be evil, and it wasn't always done in such a way that it's like, okay, this is going to unfold the way normal society would. Because it's an adventure game. It's a story that's being driven by the players and the DM, and the DM didn't always say, okay, well, this happens. What is the ripple effect of that?
Yeah, see, sometimes you do get that where the GM just like kind of hand waves it to get back to the said adventure.
Or if you're playing a module, like, no, the module does not have any place where you go off the rails and go like set up your own duchy or something like that.
So yeah, I guess I don't know exactly when the concept of murder hobo started.
Well, so there is a movie from like maybe the 80s or something like that, 90s, called Hobo with a Shotgun, and the term murder hobo I think is actually derivative, whether many people know or not, directly from the film title Murder Hobo, because he was a hobo with a shotgun that went around shooting people.
But at some point, it got adopted by the gaming
culture. Yeah,
I mean, it's always been there. There's always been that style of play: kick in the door, take the monster stuff, right?
Munchkin, yeah.
And then the problem becomes when you leave the dungeon and you still have that same mentality:
kick in the door, take their stuff, kill them.
Right, and that leads to the murder hobo syndrome, right, where your players also, they don't see the correlation between the consequences that you start presenting to them in the game and the actions they took.
Well, I mean, that's kind of step or tip number one in this video is the consequences, that evil acts have consequences. And a lot of times murder hobos or the people who play that style don't understand.
They're not accustomed. They're used to the video game where the AI isn't going to do dick about the fact that they just knifed a wife and 5 children or something.
There is going to be town guard. There is going to be people that are going to investigate that. And technically, if you take care of everything in the biggest possible circle, no, there won't be any ramifications from it. But how big is that biggest circle?
You have to scheme real hard to make that happen.
So it's like, all right, well, I got to take out that guy, and then I got to take out the town guard. Well, then I got to take out the kingdom. Well, are they allies with the kingdom over there?
Or can I pin it on the other kingdom and start a war and profiteer and then sell things to both sides?
How many meteor swarms do I have that I can cast today?
That's really what it comes down to.
Because I'm going to need a lot of them.
So, like, there is always the next step in that chain, or the next link in the chain, I should say. And people don't think about that, or some people don't think about it.
Well, I would say that you get, inexperienced GMs, I think, get stuck with this a lot. Where it's just like, oh, they just started killing my characters. I don't know what to do, because I had points for these NPCs to say, or or do or act, or
And they're not going to say it except for Beyond the Grave with a Speak with Death spell.
Yeah. It's like this was a hook, and they killed him, and this guy was supposed to sell him this thing that they were supposed to open up another quest, and they killed him.
Well, when the players go down that road, it's very obvious to say, okay, well, let's bring in a town guard. Town guard's going to eventually investigate. If they take out the town guard because the town guard uncovers too many clues, then you need to roll in a more powerful. And eventually you bring in that mighty Justicar paladin that's ready to deal out justice that's far more powerful than the party can handle.
You're bringing the Justicar. I'm bringing Judge Dredd.
Yeah. Similar thing.
Yeah. So Mr. Mercer, he gave 9 tips, and all of them are about running an evil campaign, except for the very first one, where he touches on the murder hoboism, which can then lead to kind of like an evil campaign. Which kind of the problem, the biggest problem with a campaign where it kind of runs into an evil game, as opposed to one that was started from the beginning and planned as an evil game. Both of them require the same thing. Even if you haven't done it or you've gone so far from what the original intent was, you might need to stop and do a reset where you have a session 0 and you come up with a new social contract, especially for delving into the area of evil. That's where the social contract becomes really important.
How dark do you get it? Is it dark gray, or is it how black can this get? It can't get any darker.
And that steps on tip number 2, and that's communicate and collaborate with your players. Make sure everybody's on the same page. Because ultimately, the last thing you want to do is force someone out of the group because the direction that the campaign is going becomes uncomfortable for one or more of the players at your table.
Yeah, like killing or torturing children. Like that, say somebody is a parent or a school teacher or something like that, and that's just too close to home for them, and that is something that they can't deal with in their recreational hobby. Like, it's understandable. So you don't want to... Somebody doesn't want to go to a game to have a miserable time.
Well... There's why do we play this game? We play this game to escape, right? From our day-to-day drudgery. You might want to rethink your friends if their idea of escape is some of these darker things. That gets a little serial killer, scary, stalker.
Yeah, and same thing. Some people don't want to deal with graphic descriptions of how torture is done. Like, sure, you can say that you tortured them, but if you go into lengthy, voluminous detail in the way in which you're going to flay their skin from them as you question them, most people aren't going to be on board for that. So there's people that are going to want to. Can we just kind of say you do this thing
and make a roll for it or something?
Yeah. Let's just skim past it real quick.
So the next tip is evil is fun. Don't be shy. And while it's great to be the hero, there's times that it can be just as much fun
to watch the world burn,
to be the villain. And it doesn't you don't have to be the world conquering villain. You could be, okay, well, I'm just trying to look out for number 1, or, in this case, the party.
Or you could be like Dr. Doofenshmirtz, who just wants to take over the tri-state area.
One of the best villains ever.
Yeah. Phineas and Ferb action, if you're not familiar.
I had no idea where you were going.
Here's the thing. A Mafia-style game could be a lot of fun. Even playing, Cops and Robbers, Bonnie and Clyde style could be a lot of fun. Or, kind of like Wild Wild West style. These can all be really fun, but they don't have to be particularly dark. Again, there's different flavors of that, right? Do you go spaghetti western, or are you going to go, Sopranos or Casino? Yeah. So it can go anywhere in between, or you can look at Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones does deal with a lot of adult content and some.
There's definitely evil acts
and darker issues, and you might want to use that as a model of going, well, what from Game of Thrones is okay in your game, and what do you want to not touch?
What would you contrast? The other thing, too, you might want to think about in an evil campaign is the scale and scope of your character's ambition. Like, does he want to run just like a municipality, a city, a state level, or literally a whole continent, or rule the world? What scope of what level of megalomania do you want to instill to your character, or do they want to just be the shadowy manipulator from behind the power that does it? Right?
Which both of those work, but the Joker character that just wants to see the world
everything
burn
does not work for an evil campaign. No. Yeah. Or you can kind of have an understanding with that character that the whole idea is to eventually pit the party against them. If you've communicated everything clearly, maybe there's a back channel between the dungeon master and that player that eventually they're going to have to put you down because you're going to go down this much darker path.
Well, that would lead us to the point where Matt was talking about having having a threat that both the good guys and the bad guys want to see put down because it's a threat to everyone.
Existential threats.
And yes, you could run a whole campaign where eventually it's one of the players that do that. But I feel like the lead up with that character and the amount of restraint that player would have to show throughout the campaign might seem inconsistent when you finally get to the aha moment, and could possibly cause problems from here to there. But you have to tread really lightly when you put the villain character in the party.
But that also applies into tip number 4, and that's collaborate on your evil actions. The party needs to be on board with what's actually happening, and if you have somebody that's so far afield, it's like, all right, we're a little bit evil, and you're it's not gonna work.
I feel like that's another one you fold back right into the session 0, where you guys discuss and put together the party that works together.
Yeah, really, like the only alignment that's pretty much precluded from being an evil party is chaotic evil, because chaotic evil characters just don't know how to play nice with others. They're just not very good at that. So lawful and neutral evil are both solid choices.
And
you might get away with a Harley Quinn, but again, a character like that you would probably want to tie to another character so that.
Who's also chaotic evil?
No, they don't have to be chaotic
evil. I'm thinking about the Joker thing, yeah.
But yeah, those two in a party was not good for
party balance or cohesion. Nope.
But that character connected to a lawful evil character, even a neutral evil character, would work fine because love knows no bounds. Like you could go as a love interest, you could definitely play that back and forth. Doesn't even have to be romantic. It could be familiar. It could be friendship. Yeah. It could be the evil version of Sam and Frodo.
Yeah, dark mirror version. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like you're saying, with love, there's always something that is important to everybody, even if they're a terrible person. So I would say chaotic evil, as long as you can
really
roll in
tightly rein them
what
in.
They're interested in preserving or holding up or actually doing in life. You can roll that in.
Like maybe the lawful evil liege lord and his fanatically faithful servant who happens to be a chaotic evil psychopath, like a soldier or something like that, is just bonded to him because he's always been a fantastic person to their family or something. So this
to this one person, he's lawful good. It's kind of like
Thrycreen.
Yeah,
Thrycreen are like always lawful good to their clutch.
Yeah, everybody in the clutch were all lawful good. Everybody else, they're like things. They're not really people.
But in order to have sustainability, you actually have to have times that there is not evil going on, and that's tip number 5. Is you have to create a buffer zone of evil actions, so that all right, there's times that you're doing evil, but then you have these zones of not evil that you're doing. Because if you're constantly doing evil, then it's just going to spiral out of control, and the goodly things of the world are just going to track you down and kill you.
I just heard evil. No, I totally agree, and Matt's right. By buffer zone, you can't be doing evil for evil's sake. If you're playing in an evil campaign, when you're doing these things, there should be a rhyme to your reason. There should be
an agenda.
Yes.
Yeah. There should be a thing that you're like, I did this evil act because it furthers my goal of doing X, and not just like stealing the candy from the orphan whelp that's on the street in plain view of the townspeople.
Yeah, I think it's hard for people because they're not evil to identify with doing something really terribly wrong for supposedly the right reason.
Like, I'm sure many people have had that flash of a thought of like the thing that they think they could get away with and they could do, but they choose not to. And I think the evil person is the person that 9 times out of 10 does do that thing if it really furthers whatever they wanted to do.
But then there's cartoon villainy. So it's kind of like if you're always doing evil acts, it's kind of like gets cartoonish. Like, why are you always doing evil things? Is kind of like a not even a calling card, but just simply like a goofy character trait almost at that point, rather than
cartoons sometimes just insert things in there just for comedic values. So number 6 is in his tips is be flexible on campaign length. Not everybody's going to want to go into a long haul of a
what he's saying is it's an evil party and they're going to turn in on themselves and it's going to self-destruct. That's what number 6 is about.
That was my takeaway as well.
Yeah.
Evil. Did he actually say that, or
in a much eloquently but long-winded way of saying, it's just like evil does ultimately turn into itself. There's going to be infighting, And it's fine if that happens, because that's being truest to evil. Is like, evil is so selfish. It has a hard time fully functioning and working together towards a greater goal.
It's possible to run a campaign, an evil campaign, to successful fruition, but you're right. Be prepared that it could just implode, because evil is evil.
If you get 10 good sessions out of an evil campaign, consider that a major success.
If you can build in mechanisms like the Suicide Squad, where Amanda Waller is just like, well, you do what I say or I blow your head off, right? Because there's a bomb in it.
Yeah, well, that's...
Then it kind of works, because you don't really have a choice. Do or die.
But linked to that whole, turning it on itself, in your session 0, number 7 is limit your PvP. Have it set up in advance of what's allowed and what's not. I'm not really all that thrilled about player versus player. I think it's up to the GM to put out threats, but I'm also not going to say no, I don't allow it in my game, because I think that's kind of like stealing a bit of the
player
drama.
Agency. Well, the player agency and the conflicts that should happen with an evil game or any game.
In your Spelljammer game, there was very nearly player on player combat, and we talked it out, but it could have easily been like, all right, they start flying.
Yeah, it's really hard for players to not take it personal when you kill their character. And it can create a bad social situation, not game situation, social situation. If players are fighting each other and they're not able to divorce themselves from the characters. We've seen it happen before, probably numerous times throughout our decades of gaming.
Yeah. Right. Which I am kicking myself for that Spelljammer thing, because I realized the perfect thing to have done to his character actually would have been to geese him to right the wrong. Missed a golden opportunity. Like those things you think of after you leave the game.
I was prepared to feeble-mind him, and I know he would have failed to save. So.
I don't know. Mark can roll really good sometimes.
Sometimes the dice just are with him.
He wasn't proficient in the save.
All of that being said, you guys had marooned him. It worked out well. That was really a good
solid, because other adventures will happen as a result.
Right. Yes. So number 8 is comfortable levels of evil. And that, again, is something you talked about, is making sure it's in the session 0 is what's allowable. You talked about, do you want to describe the levels of torture, or do you want to just say you tortured them? Some people are not comfortable with very descriptive, or there's a push button or a sensitive topic.
Triggers.
So if you avoid those, you're going to have a more enjoyable game.
Well, and there are certain things that are just more taboo to bring into your gaming table than others. And so, like the comical, like launching a fireball at the orphanage, as long as you're not like graphically describing it, like maybe some people are okay with that. But if you're like, then you start describing the charred husks and all that, like that could rub some people the wrong
we
way.
pretty much covered that. Your group has to decide what's okay and what's not okay.
Yeah. Where do you get to your level of like, this is going to make this game something that I need like therapy sessions after, is probably not a good place to be.
And Matt's last tip is to go either political or economical in your evil game, because there's always alternate kingdoms or other things that you could be working for, and you're going up against the good people, but there's these things that are going on that you're dealing with the machinations behind.
It brings it back to one of the important things about evil. Evil people don't generally see themselves as the bad guy in the story, right? They're just trying to do what they're trying to do. Their methodology might be questionable or whatever. They might see everyone else as the bad guy. And that's what it comes down to. Like, everybody's bad guy is somebody's good guy, vice versa. You can play on that and have a successful evil game.
And sometimes it's even better evil when it's legal. So if you figure out a way to make it legal or within the letter of the law, like a good lawful neutral character or lawful evil character.
The best example would be the Cold War between the U.S. and Russia, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure the Russians didn't see themselves as the bad guys. We're not the bad guys, but clearly someone has to be the bad guy, right? That's basically what he's speaking to, in my opinion.
And I think it's good because it gives your evil characters a purpose, and so not just spinning their wheels down into murder hoboism.
Right. If there's a deeper logic, then you're as far removed away from murder hobo.
Yeah, get them towards the machinations of overthrowing areas or kingdoms and things like that, rather than just offing people.
Just cause.
So, all in all, once again, Matt Mercer produces some great quality content, some good tips there. Go check it out. We'll put a link to that description in the video below, just in case you didn't find it. But I'm thinking you probably watched it by now. Come on, it's freaking Matt Mercer. While you're at it, guys, leave us your comments, your thoughts in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe.
Check us out over at nerdarcade.com.
Well, then don't forget to check out our store.
You can also find us over on Facebook.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.